Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the 12 greatest classical melodists of all time. I say classical melodists because because we need to talk about classical music as opposed to songwriters or pop music people. Because, if we were to go that way, holy mackerel, there's a whole crew that we'd have to talk about. Irving Berlin and Jerome Kern and, you know who I mean. The great Broadway musical people, Richard Rodgers and millions of them. And they were wonderful, absolutely wonderful. We'd also have to mention Gershwin for both classical and popular music. I don't want to be controversial here. I don't think I am. I think I've got the dozen greatest classical melodists of all time. You may disagree. You may want to add someone to the list. You're welcome to do so. But I think this is a pretty solid list. I really do. So you could look at it below, or we could chat about it a bit, which I hope you'll enjoy doing. You ready? First, Handel. Absolutely one of the greatest composers of vocal music ever, and he just wrote amazing tunes. Incredible tunes in his operas, in his oratorios, orchestral works. The fireworks music, the water music, the concerti grossi. They're just full of fabulous, singable, vocal, gorgeous tunes. Which brings us to our first point about greatest melodists. All of the greatest melodists essentially wrote vocal music. Whether they wrote instrumental music or not instrumental music, it was vocally based, vocally inspired. And the fact that a composer wasn't one of the greatest melodists of all time doesn't mean he wasn't a great melodist. It just meant that wasn't the arena in which he especially excelled. And I want to be clear about that because there are many, many, many great composers who are not on this list, who were not the greatest melodists of all time. Beethoven, Bach, So, Handel, for sure. Oh, my goodness. You go away humming his tunes. So they are absolutely tremendous. Next, Mozart. For sure, Mozart. Mozart was the vocal melodic guy par excellence in the classical period. Just about everything he wrote was gorgeously singable, sensual, beautiful, long-breathed vocal melody. That was Mozart's thing. Of course, he was also good at everything else because he was like a screaming genius. But his melody was unmistakable and absolutely gorgeous. And his tunes have been humming around ever since, even his quick ones. Eine kleine Nachtmusik. How many people know? Without even having to, They know it. Everybody's heard it. They may not even know who wrote it, but they know it. That's the point. That's the kind of tunefulness I'm talking about. And it's all the more remarkable in the classical music world because it's not the kind of thing that people hear every day in their lives. It's not popular in that sense, but it's known. And that's what makes it so special. Schubert, for heaven's sake, you have to have Schubert, right? Because he wrote like 600 and some odd songs. And you got to be able to write tunes if you're going to write 600 and some odd songs. Well, you don't have to. But if anyone's ever going to sing your songs, you have to have, an amazing fund of melody. And that was Schubert's thing. He was, first and foremost, an amazing tunesmith. And his melodies are absolutely immortal. Yes, they're immortal. And everyone knows them. This is the symphony that Schubert never finished, right? We all know those. We know that one. We know even his March Militaire. Yeah, da 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 da. But people know it. They don't know why they know it or who wrote it, but they know it. So Schubert is definitely up there. After Schubert, Chopin. Oh, yes. Chopin took Italian bel canto melody, and I could have included Bellini or Donizetti or somebody in this list, I think credibly, actually, but okay. Chopin stands in for all of them. The ultimate bel canto melody applied to the piano. His music, his harmony is extraordinarily rich. His tunes are unforgettable. And if you're growing up, you know them. You know the Funeral March. Da, 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 right? You know the Minute Waltz. We know these tunes. Again, you may not know who wrote them, but you know them. Chopin's melody was always recognized as exceptional and incredibly profound and personal and very, very, very special. After Chopin, oh, of course, Tchaikovsky. How could we not have Tchaikovsky? The universe knows the Nutcracker. It knows Romeo and Juliet. It knows, endless quantities of Tchaikovsky. It knows Swan Lake. I mean, Tchaikovsky was the acme of romantic melody, wasn't he? I mean, in the way he scored his orchestral melodies too, with that unbelievable violin cantilena. It was almost like a physical pressure wave coming at you. It was like, wah! So Tchaikovsky has to be on the list. Johann Strauss II. We all know the Blue Danube. We know his waltzes. We know his polkas. We know his hoochie-goochies. We know all of his little popular thinglets. The pizzicato polka. It's like, oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, he was an unbelievably gifted melodist. He really was. And he wrote hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pieces. The vast majority of what he wrote is completely unknown. But if you take the time to listen to it, for example, with Naxos's Complete Strauss edition, which I have sitting right there it is, you will discover that it's astonishingly high and consistent quality. There are few tunes that you won't go away humming, and few composers who were not touched in some way by his popular music. It's just really cool stuff. Then, after Johann Strauss II, Grieg. Some of you may say, Grieg, he didn't write music in large forms. Precisely the point. Like Chopin, why do we still listen to Grieg? If he didn't write big, huge symphonies and impressive things that fill up whole concert programs and all of that stuff. It's because everybody knows his tunes. The Peer Gynt Suite. I mean, everybody knows it. The lyric pieces, the Holberg Suite. Wedding Day at Troldhaugen. Try and get that out of your head once you've heard it. It's been stuck in my head for the past 35 years. It's incredibly catchy. Unbelievable. And, of course, the Romantic Nationalists, I mean, they appear on this list fairly frequently because they had the advantage of being able to work out classical melodies based on a folk tradition or a certain harmonic process, which makes them both individual and unforgettable, and also somehow exotic and luscious. And Grieg was one of those. His violin sonatas, the cello sonata, you just pick any piece by it. The Norwegian dances, they're all unforgettably tuneful and beautifully written. And, of course, after Grieg, the guy who probably wrote the least amount of music for being one of the greatest melodists of all time, Bizet, because of Carmen. I mean, Carmen is a miracle. You've got an opera where every single number is like a smash hit, and most people know most of them. And the only other things that we care about by him basically are L'Arlésienne, which is also full of unbelievably great tunes. And I mean, yes, there are other things. There's the Petite Suite or whatever it is, the Jeu d'Enfant, that thing, whatever that thing is. And then there's the Symphony in C, which is also just a gushing fountain of fabulous melody. And it was a student work. It was a gift that he had. And so even though, he died young, and we know a couple other numbers from like Le Jolie Fille de Perth or the Pearl Fishers or whatever, what can you say about those tunes from Carmen? It's really extraordinary when you think about it. I mean, just how powerful that work's melodic fecundity really is. It's fecund. If ever anything was fecund, Carmen was fecund. She was also a lot of other things. After Bizet, Verdi. Of course, Verdi. The great Italian romantic nationalist guy. Everything from Va Pensiero to the Anvil Chorus to Celeste Aida to, O Patria Mia, if we're just sticking with Aida. Unbelievable. Stride la Vampa di quella pira. Oh, God. La Donna Mobile. How can you not include Verdi? I mean, music that every organ grinder in Italy was churning out, and everywhere else too. Wonderful, wonderful melodies, and melodies that don't date. It's very, very interesting. You hear them, and I mean the Grand March from Aida, and they're just there. They're like they're physical products of this incredibly virile imagination. Simply wonderful. After Verdi, well, Dvořák, of course. Arguably the finest, most versatile melodist of the entire Romantic era. My God, everything he wrote is gorgeous. I mean, from the symphonies, all the chamber works, the symphonic poems, the choral music. It's just amazing how much extraordinarily beautiful melody he was able to produce. And what happened to them, I mean, the slow movement, the Largo of the New World Symphony became what most people consider to be a Negro spiritual, but it isn't. It's the Largo of the New World Symphony that was later modified to become a spiritual. When you can do that, when you can write tunes of that kind of universality, then you know that you're a first-class melodist. And Dvořák, everybody agrees, was that. After Dvořák, Puccini, the last of the great Italian nationalist opera composers. He really was, because when you consider that, he wrote a couple of early operas, and then every other thing that he wrote, except for maybe La Rondine, immediately entered the repertoire. Fanciulla del West, okay. But when you consider Bohème and Tosca and Manon Lescaut, these are not in order, and Madame Butterfly and Turandot and the three operas of Tridico, particularly Gianni Schicchi, which has O mio babbino caro, that everybody knows, even if they don't know where it's from. I mean, yeah, he was unquestionably one of the great melodists. And last but not least, this may be the only mildly controversial choice, but I think I can justify it, Prokofiev. Prokofiev was the last of the great Russian romantics, in my view, and his brand of music, which I used to call, wrong note romanticism, big romantic melodies with interestingly wrong notes here and there, or gawky, awkward harmonies or something. But I mean, there are enough great tunes in Peter and the Wolf to qualify Prokofiev as one of the greatest melodists ever. His tunes were unbelievable. He didn't always write in that style. It wasn't something he could turn it on and turn it off. But when he turned it on, nobody could beat him. He was absolutely incredible. Romeo and Juliet, the whole ballet. And he was able to find fresh impetus in simple ideas. Like Romeo and Juliet, the Knight's Dance, the one that we all know from the car commercials and the perfume ads and all that. Dum ba dum ba da 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 dum ba dum ba dum bum. I mean, it's amazingly characterful, but it's just a minor key arpeggio. But nobody else wrote anything like that. When was the last time you heard a minor key arpeggio that does exactly what Prokofiev does with it? That's melodic genius. How to take something that's completely hackneyed or unspecial and make something absolutely magical and personal out of it. That's what great melodists do. So there are my 12, the 12 greatest classical melodists of all time. And I want to thank the viewer who suggested that I do this list, actually. One of the reasons I think this is a good list, I have to say just in closing, is that it took virtually no thought. I hope you don't say, well, it looks like it took no thought, you moron. What I mean is, I didn't have to think about it very much. I just said, melodists, boom, 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 boom. Out they came. That's who they are. And I think that many of you will probably agree with most, if not all, the people on this list. There is room for argument about others. Like I mentioned a few here, and you may have some as well that I didn't mention, but I think these guys are definitely on anybody's short list. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.